Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today we are using the stamp set. It's a big and bold from Colorado Craft Company that is called Citrus Berry Cupcake. Now, I think this is probably the third one of these stamps from this company that I have used. I am a big fan. Um, I told you guys, with having Caitlin and trying to still sneak in card making, especially for, you know, birthdays and things like that I would normally give them to my family members. These are fantastic because you can fit the whole image on an A2 size card or not. And so I was playing around a little bit with having it hang off the side of the card just because I think it makes it more interesting. And that's what I ended up going with. The reason that I went with the right side of the card versus the left side of the card is because of the angle of the citrus slice. Now, I colored it like a lemon, but you could do, a lime or an orange. I mean, there's a bunch of different combinations. Just like it could be a blackberry or a raspberry. It would, either one would be totally fine. And I actually did Google some recipes to see to see if that was a thing when I was trying to figure out how to color it. And I ended up going with a lemon and a raspberry. But the way that it's angled, if I went to the left-hand side of the card, it seemed like the image was facing the wrong way. Like I wanted it to be so that your eye was drawn to the sentiment. And so that's why I stamped it on the right instead of the left. I did stamp it twice because it is a larger image. And I just wanted to make sure that I got really good, crisp lines. And then I kind of picked this array of red violets or pinks. And we're going to talk about pastel coloring with dimension. This is something that took me a very long time, and was very challenging for me because I wanted there to be dimension, but I still wanted the color to be soft. And so because I am more heavy-handed with my coloring, and I know that about myself, it's taken me a little bit of time to get here, but I'm going to kind of share with you some of the tips and tricks that I have learned that have helped me. First of all, when I'm doing my coloring, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I start with my lightest color and then I move out to my darkest and then from my darkest back out to my lightest. Typically, when I'm doing my coloring, what I do is I lay down where I want my shadows to be with my lightest color. And the reason I do that is because it's the easiest to cover up. So if I put it in a place where I'm like, ooh, there shouldn't really be a shadow there, it's super easy to fix the problem. And you know that I don't like to start over, so fixing the problem quickly is something that's important to me. The next thing that I do is typically wherever I put my lightest color, I go back over with the next color and I extend it out just a little bit. So I kind of color each one with just a little bit of overhang from the next color. Now, when I'm doing pastel coloring, where I want the soft color but I want a little bit of dimension, I do not do that. I put all of the color pretty much in the same place until my second time around. So for this larger fold of frosting, like I knew there was going to be a shadow that sat underneath the raspberry, and so I felt comfortable kind of extending that out. But for all of the other lines and I want to call them folds, but they're not really. What do you call them with cupcakes? I'm not sure. But I just keep layering the color pretty much in the same exact spot without really adding too much extra to it, because that's going to leave me this huge white area. And that huge white area is what's going to keep my overall color really light. So this next difference is normally when I am coloring an image, the main two colors that you can see are the two in the middle. I like a 4-color blend. I like to have 2 midtones. So if I'm coloring it, The two in the middle, in this case, would be an RV04 and an RV19. Those would be the ones you'd be able to see the most of. In this case, that will not be the case. The ones you will be able to see the most of are my two lightest colors, which will be an RV00 and an RV04. That is why I am leaving so much white space, because I want those two colors to be prominent. I need the other colors to create the dimension. I need them. But I want the two lightest colors to be the most predominant ones, and that's how I'm going to get that kind of soft pastel look. Also, something to note, this technique is much easier to practice on bigger images. Smaller images are much harder to color, period, but definitely much harder to color with keeping them pastel with dimension. You have to have a lot more control with a smaller image. So if you want to practice, get yourself a big bold stamp, or if you do digital stamps, print out your stamp at a really good size, and then you should be able to practice this technique pretty easily. So now, like you can see, we have that dimension. It looks really weird. It looks strange because there is so much white area. But as now we are starting to extend them out just a little bit, where this RV02 is going to fill in quite a bit, and then the RV00 is going to be my highlight. But it still creates a lot of dimension within those folds of the frosting and gives me a very large highlight area so that my coloring just stays in a much lighter shade. I was really happy with the way that this came out. You could definitely do this with no line coloring. They actually have an example. The Colorado Craft Company has an example on their website with this stamp set, and I actually think it's watercolor and not Copics, but somebody did no line, and it's beautiful. It really is. I didn't have the time to do it. No line always takes me so much longer because you have to pay so much more attention. But so I chose to do the bold black outline, but I really was very pleased with the way that this came out. So what is this card for? I told you, I really am just trying to knock out cards that I can give to my loved ones when I need them. This one is for my best friend. So let me tell you about her. I will not sing to you the Nielsen song, People Let Me Tell You About My Best Friend. But if you are like me, it should have played in your head. It should have played in your head. So my best friend, and I have two people in my life that are from my childhood that I'm still friends with. And I realize that I am very blessed to have that because I know not everybody does. But Daedra is, she's been my best friend since we were 15 years old, since we were freshmen in high school. That's when we met. It's so funny. We laugh now looking back because we were very different style wise. Like, you have to remember that I was in high school in the late 90s, and so like the grunge scene was upon us, y'all. The grunge scene was upon us. So she was like black lipstick with like the two little strand bangs, wore a lot of black t-shirts, wore a lot of like heavy metal choker chains. She may even had a chain, like, the ones that used to, like, the wallet chains that would like hang down. She may have even had one of those. She probably wore Janko jeans. But I was much more, I don't want to say preppy. I was like, what also was in style back then was flare jeans, was like the baby doll tops, clear heels. I know now, like, that's crazy. I would never wear that. But like, I blow dried my hair straight every day. I wore, like the frosted eyeshadow. Like, we just did not look like two people who should go together. And yet we did. We met in home economics, which I don't even think they call that anymore. I don't even think they call it home ec. They probably call it something, super woke. I don't know, but that's what it was called back then. It was home ec. And half of our semester was sewing and half of our semester was cooking. And I didn't really have to, I mean, I knew I was always creative and I was drawn to that. Um, but I didn't, I mean, my mom cooked every day. You know, like that's the way it was back then. Back then, I still cook every day. I don't know what I'm talking about. What am I saying? Um, so like I knew what a pressure cooker was, even though I'm terrified of them, and I still am. Like I have an Instapot downstairs, which is just a fancy glorified pressure cooker for those of you who don't know, and I'm still terrified of it. Yep, I am frightened. Um, but we we had home ec together, and it was the only class that we had together. But she made these. No, that's a lie. We had English together. Oh, we had English together. We did, because that's how we became friends. So we had home ec together, and it was like one of those things. Like she was making more advanced patterns than everybody else in the sewing portion. Like I was just over here trying to get my short set pajamas together. Like I was trying to, patchwork my pillow. I had no idea what I was doing. My grandmother sewed, but my mom really didn't, just enough to, kind of fix a sack or a hole in something. But I mean, she wasn't making clothes. My grandmother could have done that. Graham was a multi-talented woman in raising 4 children on a budget. But so she's over here with like this beautiful silk fabric, which is very challenging to work with as a freshman, making herself these fancy silk pajamas. And I'm like, your pajamas are pretty. And so we had English together, and I cannot even remember what book we were studying. Like back then, it was probably, I don't know, maybe some Scarlet Letter, maybe some Nathaniel Hawthorne. Maybe that's what we were doing. It was a freshman year of high school, and I have come to find in my older years that not all high schools cover the same like classic books. But we did. We read, like the pretty common ones. But I cannot remember what we were reading. But we both did not care for our English teacher. And even as an adult in hindsight, sometimes you can look back and be like, oh, well, I was just being a spoiled brat, or I was just being this, or maybe she wasn't that bad. Nope. I don't look back at that I have respect for her because teaching is hard, but other than that, as a human being, not so much. And that's okay. I'm not everybody's cup of tea either. But anyway, so we were studying for this test, and somehow we had struck up like conversation in class, and I invited her, and this is when people still got together in person. I invited her over to study for our math, or for our English test. And so she does come over, and we're, making conversation or whatever. We didn't run in the same circles. We were not friends with the same people. And so we're, talking about the homework, talking about the book. And then like I love music. You guys know this if you watch my channel. Hold on one second. We're going to go back to the card. So you've seen me do this stippling technique a couple of different times. I am using that again to create some texture on my cupcake. I could not, and I still do not know where my E55 went. The E50s are kind of like my go-to browns. They're my favorite browns. They're a little bit on the warmer side. And I cannot find my E55, which is like the base of my E50 collection, this E55. And so I looked for it. I looked in Peanut's room. I looked all over the place. I can't find it. And I promptly ordered another one. And there is no shame in my game. I need that marker. I need it. Anyway. So I'm using the stippling technique to create this little bit of texture on my cupcake. Okay. So I listen to music all the time, and I had music playing. Eric and I were talking about this recently, and I was like, what was like your go-to album when you were young? Everybody has like one or two albums that kind of like stand out like this. I played this to death. Mine was Ace of Base. okay, I saw the sign. All that she wants is another baby. You know what I'm saying? And he was like, I don't really have one. I was like, doesn't everybody have one? And then the other one I couldn't think of, which was more into my high school years, was The Offspring. I listened to The Offspring quite a bit. Like, I listened to that album a lot. I thought it was very cool with my disc player in my pocket on the bus after school. But anyway, that was my coolness factor. Um, but so I was playing, like I just had a CD playing in the background when we were studying, and it was Hanson. Okay, Mbop, right? Where's the love? You with me? It was Hanson, and apparently, also Daedra's also a Hanson fan, and it was like, the super secret. I don't know. I've never had any shame. Like, my personality is what my personality is. I've never really been smart enough to be embarrassed about anything. And so it didn't even occur to me like that this would be a guilty pleasure. And she was like, "Is this Hanson?" And I was like, "Yes, it is." And she was like, "I love them, but I don't want anybody to know because, she's like this grunge rocker chick." And I was like, "Dude, it's so good. Like, I love the Hanson." And so that is how we bonded. But what really solidified our friendship, which was so completely rude in hindsight. I have no idea why she stayed friends with me. I have no idea why she had stayed friends with me. It's horrible. But I'm going to tell you the story anyway because it's also very funny. So, Daedra she's a very pretty girl. She's very funny. Once you get to know her, she takes a minute to warm up. But she had her front tooth was just slightly discolored, and you could tell it was like there was some sort of trauma that happened to it. And while as I have gotten older, I still don't have a lot of tact. I have a little bit more than I did back then at the ripe old age of 14 because, see, I was a young freshman. My birthday is in August. So when I started high school, I was really young, and I graduated when I was 17, which I don't even know if it's a thing that happens anymore. But anyway, so I was very young, and I had no tact because I've always just been the same person that you're listening to now. And so we're like laughing and talking or whatever, and I'm like, "Why is your tooth dead?" Yeah, yeah, people. I said said that to another human being. "Why is your tooth dead?" And this is what solidified us being best friends for the rest of forever. Because she busted out laughing. She was like not offended at all. She was like, "I ran into a door when I was young and fell on my face. Like, I fell through the door, fell on my face, and landed on my mouth, and it killed the nerve in my tooth." But anyway, so rude. Never say that to anybody. Never say that to anybody. But it did, in fact, get me a best friend who has been with me. I mean, we have been together through, through her father passing away. We have been together through our grandparents passing away, through multiple boyfriends, multiple breakups, through all the highs and lows. We've been together through the birth of our children, which, funny enough, when I was pregnant with Nathan, I had super high blood pressure, and so they were sending me to get the non-stress test to make sure that everything was okay. And so me and Nathan's father were on the way to the hospital, and my phone rings, and it's Daedra. And I was like, "Dude, I was just getting ready to call you. How did you know?" And she was like, "I didn't know, but what were you calling me for?" And I said, "I was calling you because I have to go to the hospital, this non-stress test, whatever, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "What were you calling me for?" She was like, "Oh, I was just calling to tell you that I'm pregnant," which was wonderful news because she had some complications and she didn't know whether or not she'd ever be able to have kids. We have to go back to the card. So here, all the coloring is done, and I am going in with a white gel pen. I'm going to really ramp up some of the highlights, but also on this lemon, you know how like they're translucent and you can see almost like there's like these white lines in them, like the flesh of the lemon. So I'm putting those in with the white gel pen. And then again, just really ramping up the highlights on cupcake. In hindsight, I don't know why I didn't put any highlights on the raspberry. I probably would have done that had I thought about it. But then I'm also going to use it on the cupcake to do some more stippling and just kind of break up that look and achieve a little bit more texture. But I am definitely going to use it on like this silver tinfoil cupcake wrapper. So, but anyway, we were never sure whether or not she'd be able to have kids. So when she got pregnant with Alexa, it was amazing. And so we were actually pregnant at the same time. She was supposed to be, Alexa was supposed to be born in February. February? Yeah. And she actually came in November. So she was born at 30 weeks. So unplanned by both of us, our kids are less than a year apart. All of Alexa's friends think Nathan is her brother because she talks about him like he's her brother, which is very sweet. And she just they're like the best of friends, which is great for us because obviously we're still friends. So it just goes to show you, like, not to judge a book by its cover, because somebody that you think is maybe totally not your style is, we couldn't have been further apart as far as like our appearances. And there's even like a picture that my mom took. This was when we were older. I think we were going out dancing. I don't even know if that's a thing people do anymore, but we did back then, and we were going out with our boyfriends at the time, and my mom took this picture of us standing at the end of the hallway, which is where all of my like formal pictures were taken. It was standing at the end of the hallway in my parents' house. And I am in all white with blonde hair, and Deidre is in all black with dark brown hair. Like, we could not look any different as far as like our style of things. But she is genuinely, one of my very best friends who has seen me through so many things and gets me and understands me in a way that I am really, really blessed to have. I saw this thing that I actually shared on my Instagram, if you follow on there, that says like women need more women who will love them and support them and lift them up and not compete with them. And I could not agree more. Like, I am so lucky to have women in my life who love me and support me and lift me up. And there's no underhandedness about it. There's just genuine love and support. And she is one of them. And like now, as we're adults, which I think happens to a lot of friendships, we don't talk we don't talk every day. But when we do talk, it's like no time has passed. And so her birthday is coming up at the, what are we, the 25th? So in 4 days, the 29th. And we actually redid some end tables for her birthday, because she recently moved into a new apartment. And she needed some end tables, and her whole like theme in her apartment is very different from her grunge days. It's more like she's got like an old romantic sofa that's gray, and then her accent color is blush. And she's like, I don't want too much gray in there. So we actually did them a blush color with a natural top. And they came out super cute. So I'm excited for her and Alexa to come visit and give her gift. So back to the card. There are dies that go with this that you can purchase separately. I do not have them, so I just fussy cut around my sentiment to make that work. But if you're a die person, those are available, and they'll be linked below along with the stamp set if you're watching on YouTube. And the glossy accents, I was talking right through that part. So I did put the glossy accents on the lemon and on the raspberry. I haven't used my glossy accents in a long time, and then I used it on that card the other day, and I've pretty much fallen back in love with it. So please expect to see more glossy accents on all of the things. So that's it. That's the whole card. Thank you guys so much for dropping in and spending time with me. I will catch you on the next video. Bye.